Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. That's what I'm talking about. My name is Betty Hewlett, and I chair the Prince George's County Planning Board of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And on behalf of the commission, I am delighted to welcome everyone on this beautiful, magnificent morning to our scenic, historic, and might I say magnificent Bladensburg Waterfront Park. We are honored and thrilled to host today's kickoff of a Star-Spangled Summer of special activities throughout the state of Maryland, including, of course, the commemoration of the bicentennial anniversary of the War of 1812. We want to thank you to the excellent Fort McHenry Fife and Drum Corps for entertaining us and accompanying us today. Aren't they great? Weren't they fantastic? They're just awesome. And what you may not know, what you may not have heard, was our own Governor O'Malley was back here singing to it. And not only does he play, and you know, he's quite the musician, but I didn't know he had a voice like that too. So I think you should get on the road with them. There's life after this too. Before beginning today's formal program, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Bert Kummerow, President of the Maryland Historical Society, and he is going to lead us in a special flag presentation and unfurling. Thank you. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome on this beautiful day. I represent an institution that's in Baltimore, but it represents all of Maryland, and we're particularly proud of the fact that we were actually founded in 1844 by many of the defenders of Baltimore in 1814. So we have a direct lineage right back to the events that we're commemorating this year. And as a result of our efforts in the last couple of years, we have really been working hard with the Bicentennial Commission and the other folks to bring this story, which is an amazing story, to the public as much as possible. And we have two icons to work with, and wonderful icons that are all really an important part of the American spirit, American history, American culture. And I'm going to introduce one of them today, but I did want to put a plug in for the fact that we are loaning the 1814 document that was actually created, handwritten by Francis Scott Key, the very first version of the Star-Spangled Banner, which is our great icon that we have on display at the Maryland Historical Society. It's going to the Smithsonian, and it's going to be joined up with the Star-Spangled Banner flag for the very first time, and it's going to start on June 14th with a big celebration, and it's going to go on till July 6th. So set some time aside to go and see these two things together. The manuscript is going to be right in the flag chamber. For those of you who've seen it, it's a very, very dramatic and exciting exhibit, and this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for everybody who goes to see this. And if you don't get it then, you can come up and see it up at Fort McHenry in September, and at our place too as well. And we have a wonderful 1812 exhibit to go along with it. Without further ado, I want to mention the other icon that we created. We developed a program last year with the Flag House, with the Bicentennial Commission, with everyone to recreate the original Star-Spangled Banner as accurately as we possibly could. And almost a year ago, about the time that Mary Pickersgill actually created the flag in 1813, we started around July 4th with 200 stitchers. They were quilters, good friends of ours, people who take loving care of our quilt collection. And we started to stitch together with very accurately reproduced fabric, as close a reproduction as we could of the original 30 by 42 flag. And you're going to see the results here in a few minutes. But I did want to give credit to everyone. We had a crowdsourcing experience that was next to none. We had over 2,500 people come in and put a stitch in that flag. And so everybody participated. 16 countries, 50 states. We were so excited about this opportunity, not only to recreate the flag, but also have an opportunity for everyone to participate and come to our place and put in one of the stitches. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce one of my great friends, probably the premier interpreter of 1812 history right now, the Chief of Interpretation of Fort McHenry, Vince Vase, and he's going to help us not only unfold this flag, but really just find out why it's such an important icon for American. Thank you very much.
Go ahead and spread out of the line. You're headed that way.
So it's a very cool. Anywhere? And we're gonna need people on the end. Let's be honest.
Open, let's open it that way.
Hey, Alfonso, how you doing?
Back up. You guys back up.
You bring your concrete rocket?
I gave him one. Not up yet.
No, you're great.
All right.
Okay.
One more time.
Here you go, Alfonso.
I do figure it.
And as we unroll the flag, one thing we want to remember about the story of the Star-Spangled Banner. One, it's a very powerful local story. It's a we saw the bombardment of Fort McHenry. We're composed on a small ship in just outside of Baltimore Harbor, seeing the large flag over the fort. The actual ideas that he came to his mind were actually formulated in the year prior and during. He was an eyewitness to much of what happened. For example, if you look on the other side of that tree line over there, that's where the Battle of Bladensburg was fought. In the summer of 1814, August 24th, the British showed up here at Bladensburg. The Americans actually put 6,000 men on the field, perhaps one of the most embarrassing defeats in our country's history. Francis Scott Key was there. He didn't just pop out of the blue and write a poem. He was a militiaman. He was from Georgetown. And this war was very immediate to these people. We're so used to hearing about conflicts in different places far away. This was up close and personal. Another site that is along our Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail is only 1 mile up in that direction, Riversdale Mansion. And the folks who lived up there.
Wow.
Wow.
Way. All right, so the cheer, good Scrabble word, huzzah, H-U-Z-Z-A. Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah! Huzzah! And it's interesting to be holding this flag right here at this ground at Bladensburg. We were here almost 200 years ago on the night of the 24th of August when the British burned the government buildings in Washington, D.C. It was the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution of the United States, saved at the last minute by some clerks before the British Army got in. So you could almost say that, you know, if you could call a document sacred, I don't know if you can or not, but if you can, I would say those two, the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, are some of our sacred documents of our country out at the last minute. The Treasury was bankrupt. Nobody knew where the president was. Even Dolly Madison, who built the image of the First Lady, was worried where her president was, and staying in a small hamlet would actually hear people cursing her husband, saying that president got us into a war that we could not win. And it seemed as though this great American experiment, this was the first representative democracy in modern times, was about to fail. Maybe this 36-year-old country got in over its head. Skeptics were saying, well, I knew that wasn't going to work. They couldn't pull that one off. Look what they did. And then the focus shifted up to Baltimore. The British going after the third largest city in the United States at that time, a prosperous seaport. But Baltimoreans united from all walks of life. As one eyewitness said, as he saw women, children, free African Americans, some of the richest gentlemen of the city digging entrenchments, as he said, with no distinction being made to race or class whatsoever. The British, seeing those entrenchments on land, chose not to attack, so then the British tried a naval bombardment on Fort McHenry. You would say the rockets right there, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. one thing he didn't mention were two of the folks who were actually killed in that bombardment, and I think that just shows the cross-section of our people. One, Lieutenant Levi Claggett, one of the richest gentlemen of Baltimore City. His name is immortalized on the battle monument in Baltimore City, was killed by an exploding bomb. Only 50 feet from him, on the other side of the wall, a guy named Frederick Hall, who had been born enslaved, escaped, changed his name to William Williams. Joined the United States Army. Fate brings him to Fort McHenry. Another British shell lands next to him, severs his right leg, and he will succumb to his wounds 2 weeks later. So on one side, you can see one of the richest folks in the city, a famous guy. On the other side, somebody who was lost to history until pretty recently, and that just shows the crossing spectrum there. By dawn's early light, the British, frustrating their attack, decided that the city had united too much, and they simply gave up their attack and sailed away. And as they did, a huge 30 by 42 foot flag, an exact replica of that flag that you now hold in your hands. You can feel it, because the actual warp and weave is very just like the one on the original flag. Francis Scott Key, looking through a spyglass, will compose the words that became our national anthem. I think these bicentennials are cool because they wake us up from our historical amnesia. Is the number 200 any better than 201 or 199? Not really. It's a round number. We all like round numbers. But when you have a bicentennial, it wakes us up. We wouldn't even be thinking, some of us wouldn't even be thinking about all this if it wasn't the bicentennial year. Our local story, our Maryland story, our national story.
Huzzah!
And just like everyone came together to defend Baltimore in 1814, so look at us. We're all here together right now. And as we start, and as a team, just like they were a team, we're going to put the flag away. But as we fold the flag, just one last thing to think about. You know, this is the part that sometimes history teachers get wrong. And they say they do a great job telling the facts, they do a great job telling the names and the dates, and that's great, but that's not where it ends. Because if all this history was just something in the past, well, then we're just playing Trivial Pursuit in a grand scheme. But the deal is, this flag, you know, the generation after the War of 1812 represented freedom to a whole race of Americans during the American Civil War after the Emancipation Proclamation. So you see, you know, Union soldiers see this flag as a symbol of unity. African American Union soldiers see it as a symbol of liberation and freedom. During the women's suffrage movement, suffragists carried the Stars and Stripes. It's no coincidence the anthem was made the national anthem during a hard time of the Great Depression. The large flag, we've got the picture of Iwo Jima in World War II, but the Stars and Stripes were carried by Dr. Martin Luther King in the Civil Rights marches. The march to Selma, Alabama, the Stars and Stripes was there. The Stars and Stripes was there when they were planted on the moon, and the Stars and Stripes were there after 9/11. And as we stand here today, the Stars and Stripes are still here. That symbol and what it means to each of us is probably different. We have a nice cross-section of jokes here today, but the fact that we're all here just shows that it all means something to us. And with that in mind, like I said, like the team, we need to put the flag properly away. So those of us on the lower stripe there, we're going to make one fold this way. So you have to pass it over to your neighbor. So let's go ahead and do that.
Don't fold it. Don't fold it. Don't fold it. Don't pass to the top of the middle. Keep passing. Here we go. That's it. Yeah, we just pass. You don't have to fold. Just pass it. Just pass it. Keep it from hitting the ground. And then pass it down the other end. There we go.
There you go.
Perfect. Whoever's underneath there has to drop down. There we go.
Drop it down.
There we go.
I'm getting this. plenty in between. You do not want to miss it. I would like to take a moment to thank Governor O'Malley, County Executive Baker, Congresswoman Donna Edwards, National Park Service Director Jarvis, represented by Christina Goldfuss, for the honor and the opportunity to partner and collaborate with you and your agencies on the Star-Spangled Summer and War of 1812 commemoration celebrations and the incredible Recreational Transportation Trails Network. We stand here at this beautiful site against this backdrop of the magnificent Anacostia River, which has played an important part in our history, important part of our economy, in terms of our livelihood, in terms of fishing as well, and also tremendous recreation. You can even see the people kayaking out there right now. And I remember distinctly just a few years ago seeing our own county executive, Sherman Baker, canoeing down there some years ago. I'll let him tell you about that, and also biking along the trails. It is a wonderful park, and I invite our honored guests and each and every one of you to come back again to visit constantly and to tour it again this morning. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Bill Pensek. He is the Executive Director of the State of Maryland War of 1812 Bicentennial Commission. In this capacity, he is responsible for leading the efforts to commemorate and celebrate the deep historical significance of the War of 1812 events that occurred at this site. He also coordinates and helps to promote all statewide War of 1812 initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Bill Pensek. A warm welcome.
My apologies. Our partners in organizing this morning's event are very numerous. They are expert at what they do. It's obvious, isn't it? Thank you, Secretary of the Interior. I think that's in the job description for making the clouds part. Thank you very much. And best of all of our partners are deeply committed to this mission and are egoless. They really are. So please take a look at your program to see today who our partners are, and thank them enthusiastically, please. Why are we here today? We are here just 2 days before National Trails Day. Saturday is National Trails Day, and I know Anacostia Water Trails has all kinds of stuff hopping Saturday and beyond. We're here to cut the ribbon on the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, as we've talked about, to announce to all that we and this national resource are ready for prime time. A 560-mile land and water trail, about 200 interpretive signs at this point. That's one about every 2.5 miles. That's like unprecedented for a national historic trail, whether Selma to Montgomery or Captain John Smith or Lewis and Clark. It's very cool. We're here to cut the ribbon on another very cool thing, the Anacostia Water Trail, which is a water segment of the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, as well as to launch the 2014 Chesapeake Campaign series of multi-day War of 1812 Bicentennial Festival events all over the trail in Maryland. It's not just enough to build the trail, you got to animate it, and boy, do we have a summer packed with great events for you all over the state. Over here are the tents of people from all over Maryland that you have to visit, interact with, from Southern Maryland, Eastern Shore, Capital Region, Baltimore Region, head of the Bay. We're here to commemorate. We're starting tomorrow, actually, in Southern Maryland, in St. Mary's County, in Leonardtown, with the Raiders and Invaders 3-day festival. These festivals are commemorating the 200th anniversary of real events. They are the backstory to the Battle of Baltimore and the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner. See the exhibitors. We have rack cards. We have an amazing new printed guide, 60 pages of beauty, interactive websites. Go to starspangled200.com to learn more. This morning we'll hear from our governor, the Park Service, the Prince George's County Executive, and the Congresswoman and the president of an important non-governmental organization about the significance of this place and these efforts. If there is a common theme to this morning, it's discover the treasure in your own backyard. I mean, I've been around a while. I've seen the evolution of things. We are getting better and better and better at rediscovering these treasures in our that we live with every day, and sometimes take for granted. After the brief comments, please linger to cut the ribbon. Enjoy the Chesapeake Campaign exhibitors. There will be a guided pontoon boat ride on the Anacostia. and enjoy refreshments. We have, thanks to the University of Maryland, Star Spangled ice cream and cupcakes. The best part. Now it gives me great pleasure, really great pleasure, to introduce to you a man who understands and can articulate better than anyone the relevance of the War of 1812 in the Chesapeake to modern Marylanders and modern Americans, our Governor, Martin O'Malley.
Hey, thank you very, very much. I don't believe that anybody can tell the story better than Vince. Vince Vase, thank you very, very much. I don't know about you, but that was kind of a spiritual moment for me, holding that flag with all of you and feeling that cloth and thinking about 200 years ago, black and white hands actually sewing together the threads of the Star-Spangled Banner and digging those trenches. And I know we'll be back here on the actual date of August 23rd, and I love what I see so far of the monument enclosed up the street here in the chain link fence. And I was sharing with Congresswoman Edwards that on that image, in that Second War of Independence, as it was called, I mean, it's not only Joshua Barney, but also Charles Ball, who by many accounts was the second in command of the Chesapeake Flotilla, one of Barney's best friends and an African-American member of the Chesapeake Flotilla. And there aren't many monuments that have the images that were clearly present of the African-American people that fought for our independence in the First War of Independence as well as the Second War of Independence. So it's great to be with all of you. It's great to be with County Executive Rusher and Baker, and to all of you here, thank you for coming out today. Thank you, Bill Pensick. Thank you, the Star-Spangled Banner team. Mike Schwader with AT&T. You guys have stepped up big time and in a patriotic and Star-Spangled way. Thank you for sponsoring us. And Betty Hewlett with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Bert Cumrell, Maryland Historical Society, and all of you who've come here today. There are people here from all over our state, from Smith Island to the head of the bay and Havre de Grace, the Choptank, the Sassafras, the Patuxent, from Solomons to Upper Marlboro, on the Potomac from Point Lookout to here in Bladensburg, and on the Patapsco from North Point to Baltimore. All of you have come from all over our state to commemorate this day and this kickoff of the Star-Spangled Banner Historic Trail. 200 years ago, Maryland citizens encountered the shock and awe of their time, an unforgiving invader in more raids and battles than any state had to endure. And at the Battle of Bladensburg on August 24th, 1814, we were facing some of the toughest challengers. My predecessor, Governor Winder at the time, Lord knows what he was thinking just down the road here at Annapolis. He didn't know whether these invaders would turn left or turn right. As it turns out, they turned left, and they then proceeded on to Washington. These were the same very experienced, seasoned, battle-tested soldiers who had just defeated Napoleon's army in Europe. So they were not a force to be messed with. And at Bladensburg, the American military suffered an enormous setback. And so they were unprepared. Quickly, the American troops established 3 lines of defense. If you want to learn more about the battle, I encourage you to go on the really cool interactive battle maps that are part of the Star-Spangled 200 website. It played out here. You can pull up the modern map and see just where those 3 lines of defense were. Just before this event, I uncharacteristically had 10 spare minutes, and I drove across the bridge and up to that point where Joshua Barney and Charles Ball would have been inflicting the greatest amount of damage on the invading British forces, right across that high ridge there at Fort Lincoln Cemetery. That's where they were. All of this played out here, in this place, in our place, in Maryland. I have always drawn a tremendous amount of encouragement, some days solace, Mayor Barrow, as you will learn in your days as mayor, from history and from these pivotal moments in American history when it might have seemed that all was lost and and we didn't even believe enough in ourselves to join forces together and hold our ground. That was a devastating moment here at Bladensburg, but that moment was then turned around just several days later in Baltimore. Maryland does not forget the Second War of Independence, this War of 1812, and we led the nation. One state chose to step up and take responsibility for saving the United States, and that state was our state. And this year we have a very sacred, and Vince, we can use that word in talking about this, a very sacred responsibility. And that is to help all of us remember. Remember that our country often goes through times when it seems like the odds are stacked against us and that there's no way that we'll be able to come through the other side. But we all possess a power far greater than any forces sent against us or any challenges that we confront. And that is the power of the belief that we share. A belief in the dignity of every individual. A belief in our own responsibility to defend and, yes, advance the common good. And an understanding that we're all in this together and that we need each other. The Star-Spangled Banner. The Star-Spangled Banner. The second verse of that poem reads, "Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected now shines in the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, oh long may it wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." That idea, that powerful idea that from many different individuals, from a great diversity of people comes a stronger country, is the idea that still animates and still makes the wind blow through the stars and stripes that you and I held together just a few moments ago. Black and white people, native born and immigrant, we depend on each other. And just like the flag is made stronger by the individual threads, so too our country is made stronger by individual men and women who believe enough in tomorrow and care enough about their children's future to be able to commit their life's work, indeed their own lives, to defending this great idea. Many hands united to stitch that flag. The dignity of home, the dignity of neighbors, the dignity of every individual. This is our story, and this is our song. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Governor. And now I'd like to introduce to you Christy Goldfuss, Deputy Director for Congressional and External Relations, National Park Service. Sitting in the front row is Superintendent of the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, Chuck Hunt, but Christy will deliver remarks.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Governor O'Malley, for talking about how this moment in time connects with our history and why we're all here today. It really was a special spiritual moment to be holding that flag with all of you, seeing the wind making it billow in that perfect moment as Vince was delivering the story for us. That's really what the National Park Service is all about. It's about telling stories and connecting Americans to the story that belongs to all of us. So I couldn't be more proud to be here with you today and talk about the partnership that we have with all of you. The National Park Service, we are spending more and more time getting ready to celebrate our birthday. No, it's not a bicentennial, but it will be our centennial, so we are much younger than this moment in time, but we will be 100 years old in 2016. Some have referred to the National Park Service as one of America's best ideas, so we look forward to celebrating that in 2016 with all of you. From the monuments and memorials of the National Mall to the ramparts of Fort McHenry, residents of and visitors to this region have long been familiar with the work of the National Park Service. But our vision for the second century of the National Park Service goes beyond the borders of America's 401 national parks themselves. We want to help communities protect what is special to them, highlight their own history, and enjoy the satisfaction of protecting their local resources for future generations. I think you all heard that pride in Governor O'Malley's voice just now. And today's ribbon cutting is a perfect example of how we are connecting urban communities to parks, trails, waterways, and community green spaces that give people access to fun outdoor experiences close to home and right in their own backyards. Throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed and along its many rivers, The National Park Service works with hundreds of sites, water trails, and other areas to connect people to the special places in this region. Many of these waterways are encompassed within 2 National Historic Trails. You're probably familiar with most of them, or both of them, Captain John Smith Chesapeake National Historic Trail, and, of course, the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, which we are here today to celebrate and invite you to explore. In just a few short years since it was designated in 2008, the National Park Service has worked with many partners along the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail to develop facilities and produce top-notch educational and interpretive materials that will benefit residents, visitors, and educators alike. And today we declare the trail is now open, ready for business, and is host to the experiences and programming and ready to greet all of you as visitors. And right here along the Anacostia, the National Park Service staff from Anacostia Park and the Chesapeake Bay office have joined with the Anacostia Watershed Society, Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission, and many other local partners to complete the development of the Anacostia Water Trail as a segment of the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail. Both of these trails are tangible examples of the National Park Service's interest in using parks and trails to connect communities to their own local, natural, and historic resources. These are vital parts of our economy and our national story. It is exciting that we celebrate these trails today, that we celebrate parks and trails in our own backyards, and that we celebrate the partnership through which we build more places where people can get outdoors to play, exercise, and learn about their heritage. My congratulations to all of you and to the many partners here today who have worked so tirelessly to make this vision of these trails a reality, and we look forward to continuing this work with all of you. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you so much, Christy. We really appreciate you being with us today. Now I'd like to introduce to you our representative in U.S. Congress from Maryland's 4th Congressional District, this district, Donna Edwards.
Thank you very much. I just got off of a 4-day bus trip with our leader, Nancy Pelosi. We started actually in Seneca Falls, and I was reminded when Vince was speaking that the importance of women's participation, and it was 166 years ago that women demanded equality and the right to vote. And yet we were so much a part of the participation of the War of 1812, of all of our nation's history. And Vince reminded me as an African American, as a woman, that despite what our legal and constitutional hurdles and challenges are, that each of us has had a part in building this great nation. Now, I was asked to speak of something that reminded me of my favorite memory of the Star-Spangled Banner. And as a person who grew up as a military brat, my father almost 30 years in the United States Air Force, I know that our county executive understands that it becomes really difficult to point to any particular moment because we grew up with the Star-Spangled Banner as a part of who we were. But I thought back a bit, and I remember when my dad was stationed in the Philippines, and we were assigned to, my dad was assigned to a unit with a small group of American families, from different service branches. And that compound came under attack. My father's and his colleagues' offices were blown up. There were injuries. There was a lot of destruction. And where we lived came under attack too. And so all the families had to gather in the center of our compound. The flag on our compound, the American flag, was taken down. It was taken away. And I recall that when all the families gathered and we were a bit more safe, that we played and sang the Star-Spangled Banner, and we raised the flag again. And it was a reminder to us that the fight for freedom is long, and it's hard, and it's ongoing. And our flag and our Star-Spangled Banner are a reminder of that fight for freedom. And so I just want to thank the National Park Service, all of our partners gathered here, our governor for his strong commitment to our parks and to our historical preservation, to our community leaders who not only support this park here in Bladensburg, but really when all of us are gone and the cameras are gone, you're the ones who preserve and protect our national historic resources. And to the National Park Service, whether it's here in Maryland or all across the country, the work that's done by the men and women of our National Park Service to bring our history alive for all of us is so incredible. And you know, as a little African-American girl in a big family, we spent most of our time in our parks learning our history. We didn't have money to go on vacations. We spent it in our parks. And here, what we are reminded of once again is the importance of the parks living the history and telling the history for each one of us and for all of us in our communities. And so I'm so excited to be here with each of you and to touch those stitches in that flag and to feel that fabric and to look on those stars and those stripes for the value of who we are as Americans. And so I think there's probably not a one of us that when this year is over, when we hear our Star-Spangled Banner, when we sing those great words again, we are going to be reminded of who we are and why we fight. And to our county executive, Rashern Baker, we were just talking a moment ago that I remember riding with him and his wife and his daughter along the trail to the point that we're going to have a great commemoration here in Bladensburg. And that was a wonderful day. It was a sunny day and a bright day, and it was when we began thinking about how we were going to be part of the commemoration and the celebration of the War of 1812, of our Star-Spangled Banner, and of the presence of those stars and stripes. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman, for the personal remarks. I really appreciate. Now I would like to introduce the county executive for Prince George's County. Despite that cool, well-together exterior, he is very much an unapologetic history geek. He really is. So, County Executive Rashern Baker.
Thank you. Before I begin, let me, on a personal note, thank Congresswoman Edwards for her, not only her story about her dad and her family and their service, because it does remind me of our growing up together and how important and what a symbol the flag is. And so I want to thank her for that. I also want to thank her for reminding me, on a personal note, how important the Park Service is. What you may not know, when she reminded me of us riding our bikes, and my wife and my daughter, and what fun it was to go through the park and have the history told as we rode through. It was for us, our family, really touching, because it was the last time my wife could ride a bike. And one of the last times she would remember just how beautiful and how special not only Prince George's County and the Park Service is, but how special this country is. And so I want to thank her for reminding us of that and why we're really here. Can we give her another round of applause? I certainly want to thank the governor for also being an unapologetic history geek, and for being willing to put on that uniform that we saw these gentlemen right here wearing. The governor looked so good that I asked him, could I get a uniform like that? I won't look as good as he. But we are. I'm going to get one. I won't look as good as the governor, but I'm so pleased to be able to have one. Can we give the governor? We can go together with play. Can we give the governor a round of applause and Parks? And I am. I mean, this is my favorite part of the job, being able to be county executive during this, so I can participate in it. And so, one of the things that, I'll end with these few comments. So, one of the things that got me really inspired when we started doing the bike trail and listening to the history is it occurred to me, I always have a book with me in my car. This is the time that I read. And it occurred to me I had not read, a big John F. Kennedy fan and a big Lincoln fan, but I had not read the presidents around the War of 1812. And I was reading Washington and Life at the time. So I decided I was going to read all of the presidents leading up to John Quincy Adams. And it was so interesting to read about these presidents and to think about Bladensburg in the War of 1812. Because for the first time, a sitting president actually rode into battle right here in Bladensburg. James Madison rode into battle here. And one of the people he conferred with was the Secretary of State at the time, which was James Monroe. And over negotiating in Europe was John Quincy Adams. And the Battle of Tippecanoe was William Henry Harrison. And the Battle of New Orleans was Andrew Jackson. So you think about the importance of Bladensburg, Maryland, and the War of 1812, and the number of presidents that were shaped by this conflict. What I hope comes out of this is not just a cool monument, because that is going to be a very cool monument, but that our children will read about these historic events, will read about these men and women, and many who are just coming to light, and will have the same kind of reactions, years later, that Congresswoman Edwards and I have, and be able to explain why they're so proud to be Americans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, County Executive. Before going on, I just want to acknowledge Nikel Schultz from Senator Mikulski's office. Thank you for being with us today. And our final speaker, longtime friend, Jim Foster, President, Anacostia Watershed Society. Good morning. So I'm Jim Foster, and welcome to Bladensburg Waterfront Park. This is a Chesapeake Bay Gateways network access site here, so thanks to our friends in Annapolis for making this happen here. We're working on a string of pearls, places people can stop all the way down the river. So I'm president of the Anacostia Watershed Society, but I'm also the sheriff of the Anacostia. Okay, and that's important because we're working to restore this river, and AWS has been working for 25 years. The governor just asked me, so how's the river doing? I'm going, the river's doing really well, and it's getting better. Is it there yet? It's not quite there yet, but we'll talk about that. So thank you to County Executive Rashawn Baker and Prince George's County for your extraordinary commitment to reducing stormwater impacts on the river by appointing Adam Ortiz to the Department of Environmental Resources. The county's doing a fabulous job of trying to make up a lot of time and engaging a lot of people in this process. It's really going to boil down to reconnecting people to the river, and the county's on a great trajectory to start making that happen. Our vision is that this river will be fishable and swimmable by 2025. So I just changed the combination to my lock at home to 2025. Because if you don't keep saying it, you don't keep believing it, it's not going to happen. So that's 11 years from now. We can do this. In order to meet that goal, we need to change the frame of reference that many people have about the Anacostia. I was just in Stanton, Virginia this week, and people talk about the Shenandoah. That's the way I want them to react when we talk about the Anacostia. Okay? I believe that this river corridor is part of the fabric of our communities that henceforth we want to have people think of as a destination. A destination. Whoever thought of the Anacostia as a destination? Today we're going to start, Adam Ortiz of course, but today we're going to start thinking about
the river as a destination and make it happen. That's what this water trail's about. That's what Star Spangled Banner Trail's about for me. It's connecting people with the river. So we really need to start connecting people to the river. It's so essential to the river's restoration. People talked about the people, we've talked about the economy a little bit, but we really need to understand that connecting the people to the river, we need to start by connecting people to the river to help accomplish this goal. As more methods of access become available for people to experience the water trail and the river, we will have increased interest in the river, and it will skyrocket. Visitation to some of the most unique parkland in the United States will increase. How many of you have been to Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens? All right. What a fabulous, fabulous place. It's 2 miles down the river here. If you haven't been there, drop everything and go. And for you single guys, it's a great place to go for a date. Okay? It's cheap and it's beautiful. Go there. They have a big water lily festival. I think it's the 3rd Saturday in July. It's stunning. My wife yelled at me, "You've been doing this job for 5 years and you haven't taken me there yet?" Oi. I've taken her there now. So the other piece is to discover, and we need to discover the river again. Our AWS has a campaign about we call Discover Your Anacostia. We've told people for 2 generations, don't go there, that river's dirty. You know what they do? They don't go there. We need to reconnect people with the river. You cannot have a $10 billion of development in Washington, D.C. and a business improvement district called Capitol Riverfront without a clean river. And so we're re-engaging people. They're capitalizing on the fact that this river is getting clean. And Maryland needs to do the same thing. We have an incredible park system here. We have an incredible history here. There's a lot of economic development that can happen around this river. We need redevelopment in our watershed communities to help clean up this river. We all have to work together. So to truly restore this river, we need to have many people do a few small things. We are committed to restoring this river by 2025. It is an achievable goal. So a few of the things that we need to do and can do. We have a large commitment and effort to reduce trash, to reduce sewage, nutrients, and sediment. One of the final challenges that you may not know about is we do have a lot of toxics in the river. The problem is complex, and so it's really imperative to be diligent and to have everyone work together, private citizens, businesses, government agencies, and elected officials, to reach this goal by 2025. It would be tragic to continue with a river that you can't fish or swim. The time is now. So let me just finish by saying thank you to our many partners, because it's really a collaboration. It's going to take all of us. I want to say thank you to the National Capital Parks East, to Gopal, and to all his work. I want to say thank you to Chuck Hunt and all the work out of the Chesapeake Bay office. And I want to say thank you to all of the National Park Service for the work that they're doing. I'd like to thank Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission. They share this beautiful park with us. We have our boats here. You can see all that water pollution. I mean, those people out there in their canoes. It's my staff helping show you what it's like out here. We do free paddle nights, 25 nights this summer. Check it out. Come paddle with us at 5 different locations along the river. I want to thank the District's Department of the Environment and Transportation. We're about to complete this bike trail that the governor was here last year with the county executive. We're hooking up this bike trail to the Washington Monument. This will be the largest municipal bike trail in the country. So it'll not only be Star Spangled Banner, it's not only going to be Anacostia Water Trail, it's not only going to be Washington Rochambeau Trail, which we haven't even talked about. It's going to be a bike trail. And that's very exciting because that's how people access the river. That's how people see the river. I personally am going to set up a lemonade stand up here. I don't want anybody stealing my business plan, but I'm going to have a lemonade stand. There's going to be a lot of people coming through here, and they're going to see the river from this trail. I'm getting it. So finally, I want to say thank you to the state of Maryland, and in particular, the Department of Natural Resources, and the governor as well, for his vision and for his efforts, all the historic preservation work that we've moved.
together in partnership, we can restore this river for the benefit of the whole. One day, I hope to come across Governor O'Malley playing his six-string banjo on the river trail like he did Memorial Day in Annapolis. For the river. Thank you. Here's our river report.
Really big city. All right, here we go. Okay. 3, 2, 1.